Hi, my name is Amanda Carpenter, and I am a graduate student here at Willamette University. I am also on the women's basketball team. My life and my family's life drastically changed on December 24th, 2019. What we thought was going to be a normal Christmas Eve day turned out to be one of the worst days of my life. When my mom woke up for the day, she had a pretty severe headache. Nobody really knew what was going on. My brother and my sister-in-law flew in for Christmas that day, and she went to go pick them up. And on her drive to pick them up from the airport, she called my dad and was extremely confused. And she'd been to the airport hundreds of times before, and knew she was going to pick up my brother, but for some reason could not remember how to get to the airport. This was the first sign that something was wrong. So throughout the day, her headache got worse and worse, and eventually we took her to the emergency room. After an initial scan, the doctors saw right away that there was a lump on her brain, and right away from just that first scan and just what it looked like and where it was on her brain, they could tell that it was likely a cancerous tumor. So a few days after that, a biopsy determined that my mom did have a brain tumor, and it was a glioblastoma, which is a very rare form of brain cancer. My mom decided to start chemo and radiation immediately after that initial diagnosis. She also decided to enroll in a clinical trial where these patches were placed on her head to try to slow down the growth of the tumor. All three of these options worked well initially. There are a few complications with the clinical trial, and we eventually stopped that. But the first chemo and radiation worked really well, and she did really well throughout the spring and the summer, having regular scans, and the tumor was not growing. And then fall of 2020 hit, and one of her scans showed that there was significant growth of the tumor. Initially, when she was first diagnosed, the option of doing surgery was not really there because of where the tumor was located. It was a risky area. But with this new growth in the tumor, we decided that our best option was to undergo surgery. After surgery, the doctor was able to remove 90% of the tumor, which was amazing. It was a real miracle. We weren't expecting her to get that much of the tumor out. However, there were some side effects. The whole left side of my mom's body was essentially paralyzed. She had trouble moving her left arm and her left leg. So she came back home in a wheelchair, and she began physical therapy and occupational therapy right away to try to relearn how to walk, relearn how to use the whole left side of her body. She worked extremely hard at this. She never gave up and was always trying to improve. She really wanted to walk again. And she did. Eventually, she worked her way back up to being able to walk with a cane and assistance from myself or my dad or physical therapists. She was able to walk and worked on her left arm strength and was able to gain some of that back. And her life was relatively normal other than being in a wheelchair. She was still able to do things, would still try to help around the house, and still, would play fetch with the dog and do fun things like that. While my mom was in her wheelchair, she went through several different rounds of chemo. She was on different medicines to try to slow the growth of the tumor. They were working really well in the spring, and then early summer hit and the treatments weren't working as well. The tumor was starting to grow a little bit more, and the options for my mom were slim. There are only very few treatments that are available for patients with glioblastomas, and we had basically used all the options. There was really nothing else we could do. Towards the middle of the summer, she started to slow down a little bit, was not as active. Physical and occupational therapy were not really an option anymore. She was too weak to continue doing those exercises. And my mom ended up passing away on August 13th of 2021. It was the hardest day of my life, and something I'll never forget. But she was a huge fan of Willamette women's basketball, and she was my biggest fan, would come to every game, never missed a game in my college career, except for when she was first diagnosed. But I definitely miss having her in the stands this year, and every game I play is for her. Here are some statistics about brain tumors in the United States. More than 84,000 people were diagnosed with a primary brain tumor in 2021. Over 700,000 Americans are living with a brain tumor today. There are more than 120 different types of primary brain and central nervous system tumors. In 2021, approximately 18,000 people died as a result of a primary malignant brain tumor. Glioblastomas represent approximately 14.7% of all primary brain tumors. Glioblastomas were first identified in the 1920s. However, there have only been 4 drugs and 1 device that have ever been approved by the FDA. The Bearcats would like to invite you to our play for the American Brain Tumor Association games on January 21st. The women's game will start at 6 p.m. and the men's game starts at 8 p.m. In hopes that other families in the future don't have to go through what my family had to go through, this game is super important because we're raising money for the American Brain Tumor Association so they can further their research and their testing and help future patients that have glioblastomas like my mom had. The funds raised during these games will allow the ABTA to provide vital brain tumor resources to patients and their family, fund promising research studies, and conduct nationwide brain tumor educational programs. There will be plenty of opportunities to donate, and every dollar counts. Thank you, and go Bearcats.